disturb you. Whoa, might find a way sneakers in the pool. Sneakers in the pool. Welcome to Sneakers in the Pool, New York's most authentic Seinfeld podcast, where we review every season of Seinfeld except the last two because they were
trash.
Right. I was supposed to come up with a new one every episode. I really failed the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you want to hear about Seinfeld straight from the heart of two Jews from the Upper West Side, then this is the podcast for you. Today we'll be reviewing season 1, episode 3, called The Robbery. And what'd you think?
This was a really, really good episode.
I thought so too. It was pretty good. It was surprisingly good, actually.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I didn't remember which episode this was until I saw it. Like, I remember season 1 had a couple stinkers, but this one was a real hit.
Yeah, I didn't remember it either, but I can't remember yesterday. So
right. So, what's your take?
Really solid episode. It began with kind of a very mediocre stand-up bit.
What was the bit again?
It was about giving the finger.
Oh yeah, giving the toe.
Giving the toe. I mean,
I surprised myself and I actually chuckled at that.
You chuckled at that?
Yeah, I chuckled at the toe. I didn't chuckle. I think I kind of did one of those smiles that was just like yeah, like, kind of one of those things, but it's still it caused me to smile involuntarily. So
I kind of had a look on my face like I'd eaten something that tasted bad.
Mustard face?
Yeah, mustard face?
Mustard face is like when someone eats a face they would make if they had like a spoonful of mustard.
Is that an expression?
Yeah, the mustard face.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a mustard face.
Made the mustard face. That's surprising. I mean, it wasn't like great. It was a little, I guess it was cheesy. It was cheesy, but somehow the way he delivers it felt, I don't know. It's like when someone's making I feel like my humor, I feel like I try to make jokes like this sometimes, like when they're like so obviously corny dad jokes,
yeah,
but like
it's a dad joke, right?
The way you deliver it, like your kids can't help but they laugh, but then they fake laugh to cover up the laugh. Like when you used to do that, like you're like, but you're like really covering up like what would have been an actual laugh.
You're just embarrassed about laughing about it. Yeah.
Right. Or like they're dissing you, and so you shouldn't be laughing about it, so you like do the fake laugh. Anyway. So yeah, so it was cheesy, but he kind of delivered it in a way. I thought Jerry had a pretty solid episode. Like he kind of
like acting wise, or what do you mean?
Just as overall performance, like he was funny. He had good lines. He acted. I don't know if it was like he's no like De Niro, but like he played he hit the right sort of tempo. Like he was at the beginning of the episode, he's packing. Right. And he's like talking about like, I am the master and it's like so stupid, but it's kind of like the way that he's setting the tone. It kind of actually reminds me, I bet that's how Jerry Seinfeld is in relationships. Like when he like gets comfortable, like when he was dating or whatever, like when he gets comfortable, like you achieve a certain level of like comfort where you just start making stupid jokes and playing characters and like
and that's his relationship with Elaine at this point. It's
right. He's just like fucking around, kind of. He's got it's actually a pretty good game.
It's funny because my dad never. I mean, he never stops talking about how he's the master packer. He is always bragging about how well he can pack the trunk. Bag, luggage.
What a whack thing to be good at.
I mean, I think he has other talents, but yeah, I mean, he's very proud of his packing abilities.
I'm such a shitty packer, and I'm proud of that. No way.
Because it's such a meaningless thing.
Is your dad that good of a packer?
He's a pretty good packer. I'll give him that. It's true.
What exactly makes you a good packer? Like, you put, like, socks in your shoes or
No,
whatever?
like he'll like so he'll like pack a trunk like full of stuff, and they'll just like knows how to Tetris it in there perfectly so that there's no like wasted space and gets a lot in there.
Does he ever have to stop, like, a third of the way through and unpack a bunch of stuff in order to, like, fit something in that, like, he, like,
Yeah,
now
I think I mean he definitely does some rearranging.
Yeah. Yeah.
He takes forever to do anything.
Oh, god.
Yeah, you complain about me being slow. This is where I get it. My dad is the slowest.
Yeah, well,
He's
describing him as, like, packing it perfectly, like, you have to be a little particular. Very particular, your daughter. Very particular. Very meticulous. Particular,
I'm
particular,
not
particular.
the first bit actually from that he did in the stand up about, giving the finger, I felt like that was a really like a what's the deal with the finger? That was like a really what's,
Yeah,
a
but,
real
yeah, see, a lot of people talk about how Jerry Seinfeld has a lot of, like, "Did you ever notice" comedy or whatever, but, like, I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that's what all most
That's
comedy I
the
know is.
basis of comedy.
Yeah, like, yeah, like, I mean, okay, like, he's not like Lenny Bruce or, like, Rodney Dangerfield, where it's, like, where, like, you had, like, but at some point in, like, the 1980s, comedy just coalesced into being, "Did you ever notice?" That just became what comedy is, and now that's what it is. Like, you don't have really, like,
What
I
was
mean,
it before that?
you had, like, weird people doing weird things, like, remember those, like, twin brothers that, like, would go up on stage at the same time? I think there was, like, 2 sets of those. Like, the
Well,
Smothers Brothers were one of them, like, there was
Brothers
another, like,
Brothers.
there was, like, people did weird shit. There was, like, prop comedians, like, prop comics, like,
Yeah, prop comics. I can't get behind that.
it's like any art form, I feel like it takes a little while to, like, people sort of, like, pool into a certain style, and that becomes, like, the, like, overriding style. But then, you do have outliers like, Stephen Wright is, like, kind of like an interesting style, or Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's certain types of styles that can be very interesting, but for the most part, I feel like it's "Did you ever notice?"
Just funny little intricacies that
Right.
people notice. Everybody notices, but very few people verbalize or talk about. Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing how they can keep coming up with shit.
there's so much.
Yeah,
There's so much.
it
Yeah.
really is. So yeah, so they're in the apartment. It seems like they would be in a relationship here. Like, it really seems like they are flirting. Like, it doesn't make any sense for them to be hanging out unless they're gonna be fucking. It's like, it just seemed like they're hanging out in his apartment while he packs. Like, well, Julie Louise Dreyfus looked good at this point.
Yeah, no, I remember thinking to myself, this chick seems objectively attractive. I should pretend to be
Yeah.
attracted to her.
Anyway, he's setting her up because she's staying at his place.
Right. She's gonna stay at his place while he's out of town. He gives her the rundown.
He does a pretty good little kind of, like, this is more of that sort of, like, game, that relationshipy kind of game that he has, like, when he talks about his refrigerator and the
Yeah,
shower. I mean, he's dropping bombs left and right, but obviously,
yeah.
a good,
A good
like,
bit about it, about sex is strictly forbidden, but if you must, do it in the bathtub.
do it in the tub. Yeah. It seems, and this is not always how Seinfeld is, but it really seemed like this could be how two people would actually act, like, in real life, like, in a certain type of situation. So Elaine is bitching about her roommate, who's an actress, waitress actress.
Actress, waitress.
And George walks in at this point, and she asks if George can get her anything, better. And he's like, "Well, it's a little tough in your price range."
Right.
And he's like, "But Jerry, who apparently is doing pretty well for himself as being a stand-up comedian, which you don't usually hear of them doing that well for themselves, at least not at first." And he has a great apartment for Jerry. And then, Elaine can move into Jerry's apartment. Not interested. He wants to stay in his spot. And they make his apartment look a little ghettoer, I think.
It is ghettoer at the beginning of the show, right? It's like he doesn't have a. Oh wait, does he have a bedroom in the back or not?
Yeah, at this point, he has a bedroom in the back.
So episode 1 and 2, he didn't have a bedroom, and now his studio changed into a 1 bedroom.
Right. So, gotta iron out the kinks.
Yep, yep. You never
Um,
see that bed. Actually, you do see the bedroom at some point in the show.
yeah, a lot of close-ups of him sleeping in certain episodes, or like,
Yeah, I don't know if you see the bedroom. You see the bed.
right, the bed. For some reason, whenever I see people sleeping in movies or TV, I always feel like they look so comfortable. I don't know why. My assumption is just that they
Because they're
look.
they're actors pretending to be comfortable.
Sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep and I can't fall asleep, find myself imagining scenes in movies where people looked especially tired and like finally get to like lay down, like after like a long like horse ride in like Game of Thrones or something, like, and they're like look so exhausted and they get to like lay down in like a bale of hay and it's like heaven, and I'm just like, wow, I really fucking have it made right now. And then I still can't fall asleep. So yeah, so Jerry's not interested, and I guess Jerry just doesn't want to leave.
He first talks about how he's shitting on his apartment, how like, the fridge is shitty, the radiator is shitty, all this stuff. And then Elaine's like, when George brings up moving into this new place, Elaine gets excited because then she could take Jerry's
Right,
apartment.
because for her it's an upgrade. They have like a very weird transition.
Well, the scenes are back to back. There's a scene in the apartment,
Right.
and then there's another scene in the apartment after he gets back
Yeah.
from the trip.
There should have been some transition there
Yeah,
because it seems very weird. You don't know how much time has passed, and it seems like it's like the same day almost. But
right.
Jerry arrives back at the apartment. He sits down. He looks exhausted. Sits down on his shitty couch, which that thing is a real piece of junk.
Yeah.
Um, and he realizes that his TV is gone. And Elaine comes out of the bathroom, obviously with a plunger in hand, to set the stage. Um, and and then we find out that he's been robbed, and it happened because Kramer left the door open, not just unlocked, but open. And
This was realistic for the time period. You leave your door open, you're going to get robbed in New York in 1990.
yeah, even now, you leave your door open. I mean, the door wide open. You're really asking for something.
You are asking for it.
And this is kind of Kramer's first times where you see him like settling into the character, if you know what I mean. Like he's just kind of like he's like doing
Yeah.
some of his like physical stuff and his like very sort of like abrupt movements and things
Yeah.
like that.
But I do appreciate that he's much more subdued than he later becomes.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
still he has very
His
recognizable Kramer
traits.
traits, but he's so much more subdued than he later becomes. And I really appreciate that's the whole show. Like the whole show, like
Right,
every character becomes
right. Less
less and less
subdued.
subdued as the show goes on.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
less subtle and they just
Literally
become
just yeah. They
until the last
just
2 seasons where they're just complete caricatures of
I mean, yeah,
themselves.
Kramer in the last season, it's like he's constantly being electrocuted. Like I just feel like he's
Right.
like
Yeah.
he's just like a constant current of just like frenetic idiocy. Like, and his hair starts thinning too, so he doesn't quite have like when the show peaked. Like in this episode, like his hair is kind of normal ish, but it's
Right.
like getting high. And then like at the show's peak, he had like the Kramer like hair or whatever. But then like by the end, like it doesn't quite have like the body that it like once had, and like it's just very emblematic of like the rest of the show. I think
Yeah.
Kramer's hair thickness. is a metaphor for the fate of the show. Um, but yeah, so he's subdued. He's a little bit more subdued.
Yeah.
I like how he gets like shocked when he finds out that Jerry doesn't have insurance. he
I like
he's
he
like,
got
what?
distracted by he said he was distracted by an episode of Bold and the Beautiful.
Bold and the Beautiful. Yeah.
Never watched an episode of Bold and the Beautiful.
No,
Is that
never.
still running? I feel like it could be.
I don't think so. I I
40
know
years.
I know those shows do run forever. Those soap operas.
Yeah.
Those soap operas. What are those soap operas like? Remind you of?
I don't know. I just picture like middle-aged like schlubby women
Schlubby women.
watching watching Bold and the Beautiful, and like their lives are depressing, and it makes me depressed. Is this epidemic actually bringing like life back to these shows? Maybe.
Maybe what they remind me of though is staying home sick from school.
Right.
When you would stay home from school, which was awesome, you would get to watch TV all day, and in the morning you get a little Price is Right action. Sometimes,
Yes.
like later in the '90s or mid '90s, like you'd get like talk shows, like you'd have
Richard Bay.
Richard Bay, you'd have Maury Povich.
So did you watch soap operas then? Did you watch
No,
any of
that was
these?
that was the thing. Come
Could
come like noon or
could
something,
never get
you
into those,
were
yeah.
fucked. Come noon, you were just it was the only thing on, like on three different channels, these terrible soap operas, and they had a very specific like film grain or whatever. They had like a really weird quietness. It's like something so weird and quiet about the way that they're filmed and
Right.
edited. The whole thing just bugs me out. And they're so. I tried to watch them because there were a few times where I tried to watch it because you want to watch something. You're sitting at home, you're watching TV, you want to watch something, and it was so bad, so bad. I was
Yeah.
shocked. I still can't. I don't understand how people watch it.
Me neither. Don't get it.
So Kramer's like, oh, you have insurance, and Jerry's like, no, and Kramer's like shocked, and then Jerry does a pretty funny, quick improv
Physical bit about
bit,
the door being
right?
open.
Right,
Yeah.
it's a bit about the Clapco 5000.
Which looks to me just like an everyday
Yeah,
lock on your
yeah,
door.
looks like a pretty regular ass lock, but that's a pretty good made. If that's a made up name of a lock, it's a pretty good. That's got like Larry David written all over
Yeah, I
it,
was gonna say
like
that's
the
definitely Larry
Clapco
David, the
5000.
Clapco.
Yeah. So now Jerry, I guess, decides that he's going to check out this new apartment. He's like he's had it enough. I think George walks in, and actually, this is really good. Jerry's like, "How'd you get in here?" And
Oh
George does
yeah,
that like hands crossed, like
yeah.
face thing, which I use that. I've used that thing
I've seen you use that. The genie move.
sporadically.
The
Yeah,
genie.
like the hands crossed genie thing. I've done that. I do that probably like three times every 2 years. I'll squeeze one of those in just some sort of
I feel like
conversation.
yeah, I feel like you've done that at least a good 10 times in my presence
Yes, it's
over
like
the
no new.
course
It
of
does. It's
our
not. It doesn't always hit. It has like a 60% hit rate, but when it does hit, it's pretty good. And if you can like get it, like if you can get it so that it like works, like it's a good retort, then it really hits. But it's a good move.
It's a
It's a
good bit
good.
of acting by Jason Alexander.
Bravo, Jason.
Yep.
Um, And so then Jerry's had it, and he says, "All right, you know what? I'm going to take a look at this apartment, pat it up to here. with this shithole, this Roach Motel, this 2-bit. What does 2-bit mean?
2-bit.
What's 1-bit? What's 3 bits?
I assume a bit is like a cent in some other currency. I don't even know. Let's see.
What currency? Like 1920s America? I'm getting out of this 2-bit town. See? Just be thankful you're not living in a 1-bit town, is what I say.
All right. According to some Google article I found, 2 bits is
Google
commonly
article.
understood. Google article. I don't know how the internet works.
Extra, special edition Google paper, newspaper, the Google Times.
2 bits is commonly understood in America to be 1/4. In early America, bit was used for some Spanish and Mexican coins that circulated and were worth 1/8 of a peso, or about 12.5 cents. Hence, 2 bits would have equaled 25 cents.
So 2 bits is a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Would have
right.
never guessed that.
You're gonna get random facts dropped on you by listening to this show. So
Right. Because
just
we
be
know how to
prepared.
Google.
Be prepared for random facts. Well, see, the difference between us and others, which we're probably better at Googling than many, but it's about figuring out what to Google. Like anyone can Google 2 bits, but not everyone can wonder what it means. That's for us. That's our job.
There you have it.
So we enter this new apartment, which, by the way, let me just say, it's a little personal note. I recently moved away from the Upper West Side, and
Which makes this show less authentic now.
slightly less authentic, but still pretty authentic. And had to leave the Upper West, and I lived in an apartment. The apartment that I just left was almost literally the apartment that we see in this episode right here.
There are
It's
some striking resemblances.
Okay, first of all, this apartment that they see is on 83rd, half a block from the park. Where did I live?
82nd, half a block from the park.
Exactly. We did not have a fireplace, but we did have a beautiful, they call it a garden in the show. We call it a roof deck. But it's like almost the exact same size as that garden looks really nice.
It looked very
Whatever
nice.
one.
Yeah.
It has like a wall or something, so it looked like really private somehow. But it was spacious. It was
What would the show be like if he had moved to this apartment?
good question. I find myself even when I rewatch stuff, you like find yourself hoping like it goes differently this time. Sometimes,
Yeah.
when I watch this episode, I find myself hoping that he takes the
Someone's got to
apartment. He
take this
ends up in the
apartment.
apartment.
So good.
Yeah.
A New York City apartment, finding a gem in New York is, I mean, it's so irreplaceable. You can't, it's so hard to do. I had a gem once myself, and I lost it.
Yours, I don't know if I would call that apartment a gem. It was good, and when
All
you
right,
first
well,
got it was a
we'll
gem.
agree to disagree.
No, Tucker, let me listen.
For all the listeners
why.
out there, Jake is a moron. This place was a gem.
You loved this fucking apartment.
He makes it funny. So they ask about does he have to have a gardener?
Well, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do I got to hire a gardener? Do I have to tip him?
Right. So he does. Yeah, he does a really good with the where do you get all that wood? They deliver it. Oh yeah,
fireplace,
yeah.
yeah.
What do you tip a wood guy? He's that's why I said he was very. It was a good performance by him. Throughout this whole episode, he's just doing a very kind of nonchalant sort of attitude and vibe. and he's he's just kind of fucking around. Like, he doesn't really want the apartment. He doesn't really care that much. Like, and and then yeah, they're like, there's a garden. It's a garden. I didn't know there was a garden. And George is like increasingly getting like jealous. And then he's just like, do I gotta hire a gardener? And that's just so ridiculous. The idea that you would hire a gardener for like a balcony, like, is
Right.
such a ridiculous idea.
For a 10 by 10 plot of
Right, right.
real estate.
So that was, just a little ridiculous. And then the Lane walking in the closet thing is pretty funny
Right.
too.
Yeah, she's like, it's got a walk-in closet, and she just walks into this little closet.
Yeah, right. It's not really a walk-in closet. But she can
Also,
walk into it, so
George claims this thing is a 2-bedroom, but we don't see anything. We see the whole scene of them walking. They walk into the apartment, right?
yeah. And he says
They're
right.
discussing it, and he's like,
He's
we never see the bedrooms.
right, he agrees to take the apartment before,
Right.
I guess, ever even seeing the bedrooms.
Right. That's
That's
how
a good
great it
point.
was.
Yeah. You got to assume the bedrooms are just kind of like regular ass bedrooms. Like, the rest of the apartment is good enough. The location and the garden is good enough that you can take it without seeing the bedrooms.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But what is
So when at the end of that scene, Jerry like agrees to take it, and George gives such a great like fake smile, but
right?
such like a
Yeah,
look of it's such a disappointed look on his face. It's a
yeah,
really good
yeah. He's
piece
good.
of
Yeah,
acting because
yeah.
he he doesn't say anything about being disappointed, but it's such a you know exactly
Right.
what's going on in his
Yeah,
head.
yeah. That's true. That's true. Jason Alexander does a very good grin and bear it kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And then you're
What
left wondering, like, why did he do that? Like, what's his?
Well, you could
He's
sense
clearly
him
not happy
getting
about this.
you can sense him getting jealous, like when he starts seeing all the cool shit that's in the apartment. My question is, what does define a walk-in closet? So this is not a walk-in closet, right? As we're saying, it's not a walk-in closet, but she's just walking into it. If you can walk in a closet, isn't it a walk-in closet? I guess you'd walk in any
Hmm,
closet.
that's a good point. You can't walk in any closet. Some closets you can't even step into. They're like right there.
Well,
There's
if
a
they're
rod
filled
right
with
in your face
stuff,
as soon as you open the door. I mean, I
well, you
guess you could
can you
fit
can
into it. Yeah.
limbo into it.
Well, you definitely for a
Um,
walk-in closet to be a walk-in closet, you certainly have to be able to not have to limbo. You should be able to stand upright. That's the
so, but
bare
yeah, so what
minimum.
is like what's like? Do you have a walk-in closet in your apartment?
It's kind of yeah, it is a walk-in closet. It's as small as it can be for having a walk-in closet, I'd say.
You know what I think a walk-in closet is? I think a walk-in closet is one that you walk into it while you're using it. So, like, you have to walk into the closet to
Right, to
like
get
get
your
some of
shirt,
your
you have to be
items,
inside the
be in
closet.
the closet, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's not a walk-in closet,
right.
right? So that was not a walk-in closet by any stretch of the imagination. Then
That was not a walk-in closet.
no.
No. I know something about being in the closet.
So then, yeah. So Jerry doesn't even look at the bedrooms, and he says, "I'll take it. I'm taking it. I'm moving." So all casual, like, and that's exciting. Again, my
Yeah.
hopes go up that maybe this time around,
Yeah, he's going to
this
take it.
watch
He's going to
around,
get
he'll
it.
take it. It's just gonna stay there. It's gonna
And
change the
the
entire
next 9
course.
seasons will be
It's
in
gonna
this new apartment.
break the space time
No
continuum.
more Kramer.
Right? Yeah, great. We just Michael Richards just.
Oh no, there would be because maybe they would focus on Elaine being in.
Oh yeah.
He
Oh
he
yeah.
would bust in on Elaine. That would be weird.
I wonder if there was.
She wouldn't have any of that though. She wouldn't have put up
Yeah,
with
she would
that.
get. She would get fed up a lot quicker than Jerry.
Yeah.
So I think George walks in and he's got the lease for Jerry to sign. And George says, if you're having second thoughts, don't take it. And Jerry's like, "What do you mean? What? Why?" And, George is like, George is like, "I could take it."
Yeah.
He was like a very, very like, what would you even call that? Like, what is that? Like, how would you
I don't know.
describe that?
He's just very not a very good poker face. I don't know. He clearly wants the apartment.
Right. You just like read it all over him that he really wants it. And then it obviously, causes like Jerry to be like, I couldn't possibly take it, he can't deal with that guilt. And they decide to flip a coin.
Elaine is if George takes it, she's like, can I take your place?
Right.
And I think George agrees, right? He agrees.
Yeah, he says fine, but I'm not taking. I think that's still the point where he's not going to take it. But then they decide to
Yeah.
flip a coin,
And
and
then Elaine doesn't know who to root for. And she makes a comment like George's place has carpeting.
right, which is a
And
weird comment.
yeah, and I was wondering to myself, is carpeting a good thing? I think it was a good thing in 1990
Right, it was considered a good thing. The way she said it, like, had to be like,
because in 2020, I feel like like wall to wall carpeting would be a negative
right.
this day and
Why
age.
is that? How? What happened in society that carpeting went from bad to bad or to good or whatever?
Carpeting is only good
I
if it's
love carpeting.
pristine and clean.
Right.
You don't want to move into somebody else's used wall to wall carpeting
So why was it such a big thing in like the 80s and 90s or whatever?
because taste was terrible back then.
I
It was probably like a weird, like pastel green color, and it was it was probably gross.
I grew
But
up loving wall to wall carpeting. I still love wall to wall carpeting.
yeah, I
There's
mean, I
something about
definitely like
carpeting
the
that's just
feel of
so
carpeting on my
cozy.
feet. Yeah, it's very cozy. It is cozy, but it's gross unless if you're wearing shoes on it. Like you can't wear shoes on it
Yeah, you definitely can't wear shoes on it. Yeah. Floor, yeah, you just have to have it cleaned all the time. I guess like hotels that have carpeting, but it does get gross after a while.
my
You have to replace it consistently.
Yeah, my first apartment in college, there was four of us living in a two bedroom in New Rochelle, New York.
I think I remember that apartment.
Yeah, the Avalon,
Was that wall to wall carpeting?
wall to wall carpeting.
Yeah.
It's
I
beautiful when we
remember.
first moved in. Disgusting when we moved out.
How
It was definitely
disgusting.
like disgust. I mean, there was just stains everywhere. I mean, it was white wall to wall carpeting, and it was clearly, in retrospect, I figured this out. This is their scheme, their scam to like everybody at the end of their lease in that place, they take their security deposit because no one can keep a fucking white wall to wall carpet clean. So they at the end of every lease, they kill you on the security deposit
Yeah.
to replace the carpeting or clean
Yeah.
it or whatever.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that was their scam. I figured them out after the fact, but at the time they took my money.
Yeah. Well, you got to use the carpeting for that
Yeah.
amount of time. That's the amount
Yeah.
you pay for that.
The first month it was nice, yeah.
Um, so they flip a coin, and Jerry wins, but it hits the table. Interference. Um, Different schools of thought on interference. I I think.
I can't remember. Did he? So did he? He didn't do like the flip catch
No,
and then
no, he just did a flip. No,
flip over on his
the
back of your
flip
hand.
catch thing. When I grew up, it was flip it wherever it lands. That's what it is.
I
Flipping and
agree.
catching, flipping and catching, and like putting it on the back of your hand. Like my grandpa used to do that, and I
No
was just like,
go.
"What the fuck is
That's
this shit?"
that
There's
just
so many
leaves room
opportunities
for
for sleight of hand. Like
exactly.
so many opportunities. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's how a
ridiculous.
cheater flips a coin.
Yeah. Some bullshit flipping right there.
Yeah, I don't trust that at all. But no, there's no such thing as interference by a counter.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it. Uh,
Do you agree with it?
like I
What do
said,
you
the different schools of thought. Again, this is very situational and subjective. It's a very personal decision what you consider interference.
There's no
So,
interference. It lands somewhere and the counter is just part of the randomness of it landing.
that's what some say. Legend has it that is the case. um, So, then George is, so upset or whatever. And Jerry's like, I can't take it. And then he says, I'll choose you for it. Which, did you know what choosing was? Like, I call it odds and evens.
Right. Yeah. I always
You
called it
heard the
odds and
term
evens too.
choose?
Choose for it? No. I was half expecting them to break out into rock, paper, scissor.
Right. That was more popular, like, in our generation, I feel like.
Yeah, I
Rock, paper,
think odds
scissors.
and evens was, but I guess maybe it was called choosing in their generation.
Yeah. That was a pretty good sequence there, though, I have to say. The choosing, like
Yeah.
Jason Alexander really shined
Yeah,
in that.
definitely. He lost the first two
Yeah.
and he immediately just like he takes a step back and like takes his glasses off. He does that like signature George take his
Yeah.
glasses off and like rubs his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That
such
was
a
a
great
really
move.
good, that was a good move.
Yeah, when he gets like flustered, he like takes his glasses off and rubs his eyes. He's like, "Oh shit, I need to take a second."
And then he comes back, he wins one, but then
Yeah, he only
Jerry
wins
wins the
one.
last one, and Julia Louis Dreyfus really timed it out well with this, and she just like as soon as it hits, she
Starts
pulls out
measuring.
the measuring tape
Yeah,
like on rhythm, and there you have it. Congratulations are in order, and Jerry finally gets the apartment.
yep.
And then is this where we cut to the diner?
Well, I think there's a stand-up bit in between. Um, and he does a bit about kids like calling things, and that's like the final words. Like if I call the front seat,
Oh
you called it
yeah, yeah,
first. You
yeah.
call it.
Right. You call it, you got it. And then this next scene, they're in the diner, and George comes out of the bathroom. I love this, and he goes, "I love the mirror in that bathroom. I don't know what it is. I just look great in it. I don't know if the tiles or the lighting." And then he does a great little. I feel like Robert Wagner, and
I noticed that too, and I was like, "Who's Robert Wagner?"
yeah, when I first saw this, I didn't know who Robert Wagner was, but I still found the scene funny.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You
It
know
was
what I
it was
mean?
just a
Like
funny.
the way and it's a great name to say. And so, okay, so you didn't know who Robert Wagner was as of tonight.
Do I want to admit that to everybody?
Yeah,
Now I know as of literally
as
4
of
seconds
12
ago, as I
a.m.
googled it.
He was the guy. He was the. You remember the movie Wild Things?
Yeah, great movie.
He was like the patriarch of the rich family.
Yeah.
He's just like a prick. He's was on the boat when that actress Natalie Wood died in like 1970 or something. And there's been a big conspiracy about it. About not a conspiracy, but like a I don't know. There's a lot of suspicion that like maybe he had something to do with it. It was some fucked up like skeevy 70s Hollywood shit, like which that in like the 60s and the 70s and shit, like that
Yeah,
like those like
clearly a
old
lot of
men like, generation
cocaine
actors,
involved.
just like
Yeah,
something about like that generation of I don't know, like those the like old men of Hollywood, like when they were they're so like entitled and like Charlton Heston, like that type of what I mean? Like they're like
yeah,
such pricks, like the biggest pricks of all time.
chauvinist and yeah,
Right.
I love the mirror in that bathroom. I don't know what in the hell it is. I look terrific in that mirror. I don't know if it's the tile or the lighting. I feel like Robert Wagner in there.
Robert Wagner. Like the way he says it is just so good. And then another just Jason Alexander just knocking him out of the park this episode. He goes, I'm so sick over losing that shoes. You have no idea. Like he just like the way that he like delivers that is really on point. And and then Jerry, of course, says again he can't take it. And and then I guess that's when he decides that he's not going to take it,
yeah.
and that's it. That's all she wrote.
They keep making references to how like the rent's not very like it's a really reasonable rent.
Right.
They never say. I'm so curious
What the
what
rent
the rent
was.
is. Yeah, and they never say it. So then the waitress at the end of that conversation overhears.
Right. They're talking about an apartment.
Yeah, and neither of them are going to take it at this point.
And she says, "What's the rent?"
Yeah,
And then we cut to the
and
apartment.
then the scene ends, and I'm like, "What's the fucking rent?" But I'll tell you one thing: there's no way, even back in 1990, that a waitress was affording a 2-bedroom with a
Well,
garden by Central
okay. Well,
Park
she had
West.
an ugly ass husband,
Okay,
so
true.
he had money.
Very true. Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. I can't argue with
So
that.
he was
We don't
probably
know how
like,
much he made.
yeah, he was probably balling.
Could have been a Wall Street guy.
Right. Yeah, he's probably a Wall Street guy. Bulls, Bears, people from Connecticut. Um, it looks like a nice housewarming party. I mean, there's interesting place they decided to put the sofa. I thought it was like in the middle of the room, kind of. Like I remember looking at the apartment when they were seeing it for the first time, like when
Yeah.
Jerry was going to take it. They're all sitting there. It's weird that they would have been invited to the housewarming party, but they do a pretty good job of explaining it because they say, well, they wanted to thank us because we got them the apartment, and that
Yeah.
checks out a little bit,
That
Yeah,
checks
George,
out.
especially if George was the agent.
Yeah.
Plus, if George was the agent on it, it would have been a payday for him, so he shouldn't have been that depressed. But it was a beautiful apartment, and the rent was great, and
Yeah. Makes me
we
upset though. Why didn't George take it? George should have taken it. Someone should have taken it. I want that apartment.
right, just not forget to mention the really hot would be neighbor, the high
Yeah.
waisted pants or whatever.
Barely noticed
Um,
her.
so she has been the first girl besides Elaine Bennis on the show so far in 3 episodes. That neighbor girl is the first girl that I've been like, okay, she is good looking,
Yeah.
and but she still looks really like, and the waitress too. Like there's something about the styling of them in the styling that they had in the '90s. It was just made women look so old. I can't
Yeah.
and men. Like George
Yeah.
looks really old too, and he's probably in his
I think it was like
I
it
don't
was
know.
longer hair, drier, poofier hair.
Right, dry hair. It's
Also the clothing. So yeah, I feel like there's a number of factors that led to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
People had the style what made people look older
It really did.
and whacker.
This episode, if any episode, was so New York centric. It was all about apartments and what's the
Right.
rent, how close it is to the park. It's just another example of sort of how I'm surprised at how this
Yeah.
show was so successful nationally.
Agreed. My only theory is that people that were like not in New York maybe just kind of fetishize New York and like just it's just cool to them to hear about like these New York centric things, even though they can't
Right.
necessarily relate personally.
Maybe. I mean, a lot of shows, especially back then, did take place in New York.
Yeah.
Like Mad About You.
Don't get
The
me started
Cosby
about Mad
Show.
About You.
Mad About You is actually not that bad.
It was not that bad. There was
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah, it was like
it's
not that bad is all you can say
it's
about it.
surprisingly not that bad.
Right. You're not going to go as far as to say it was good.
No, I won't say it was good. I'll say it has moments.
Yeah. Okay. I'll agree with you.
Actually, Mark from that show went to my crunch on 83rd Street. You remember Fran's husband, Mark? I'm mad about you.
No,
Shout out to Mark. Yeah, he was like.
I really only remember Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt.
Anyway, enough about Mad About You. But there was a bunch of shows that took place in New York, I think.
Our next podcast, Mad About You.
So we've got to give the episode a rating from our patented rating system.
Where it's on a scale of 1 to 5.
1 to 5 kiss hellos.
I really like this episode. I'm going with 4.75 kiss hellos.
Wow. 4.75.
Based on your wow, I'm lowering it to 4.5. I feel like
it was fair.
But I really like this episode. I really liked it.
It was a very good episode. Jason Alexander was great, as often is. Jerry was a real standout this episode. Elaine was pretty good.
Yeah.
And Kramer was okay.
Good. Yeah, Kramer's little cameo was good.
Yeah.
The police officer was good. We didn't even talk about him.
The police officer was okay.
He had one good line. It was like,
I hate the idea of someone out there returning my calls.
Oh, right. He didn't get
Which
the joke.
I like that joke too. I feel like I like that type of joke.
That was a good
where
joke.
It doesn't really make it that much sense, but it's still funny. I pull those a lot.
Also, his answering machine was stolen.
Right.
Remember answering machines?
Yeah. I remember when we didn't have an answer. I remember life without an answering machine and then life with an answering machine.
I remember, yeah. And life with a landline.
Yeah. Landlines are kind of sick though. Like I would want to get a landline now just because it's like kind of fun. Like to walk around the house with a cordless phone. How cool would that be? Like in like a robe with like a phone with like a big antenna coming out of it. Like a 1996 cordless phone. Like that would be such a sick look. And it's the earpiece is so much more comfortable.
Did you ever did you ever get a crossed wireless signal with like a neighbor?
No.
I did.
Oh really?
Yeah. Those things did not that technology when it first came out, they didn't have anything to
separate the channels.
Yeah, there was nothing encrypted about the data being transferred wirelessly. Is
it was like a walkie-talkie,
right? And I definitely had a neighbor who had a wireless phone on the same sort of wireless bandwidth, and occasionally we would just hear each other's calls. It was pretty ridiculous.
I feel like now that you describe that, I actually feel like that did happen to me. I don't know if I ever heard a full phone call, but like I feel like I heard like bits and pieces of things or very faint things at some points. It's crazy how like before the internet, like the type of shit that seemed so fascinating. Like I'm at home bored watching, The Bold and the Beautiful or whatever, like with nothing to do. I pick up the cordless phone and I hear like a snippet of someone's conversation. For some reason, that is so fascinating to me in a pre-internet world. Whereas now I can go and like watch someone uh, like you could do anything. Like I could go
Really
like listen
curious about
like
what your next words are.
I don't
What
even know
can
what
you
it is,
watch?
but like you can like the vastness of the internet. Like if I wanted to, the
Right.
things that I could find,
Right.
like
Juggle squirrels or like
not like
whatever.
just the weirdest shit. Like get on some like really deep, like a hole into like weird shady websites and like just the weirdest shit. Like there's so
Yeah.
much and I'm not interested in any of it. All I want to do is
Here's a snippet of someone's conversation on
yeah,
a cordless
that still
phone
sounds
from
interesting. That
1990.
sounds good. I'll have that.
What's your rating? You didn't give a rating. How many kiss hellos?
So this episode, as I said, was pretty good. I'm trying to think about what the weaknesses of the episode were. All I can think of is that like main sort of lack of transition where they like the scene is in Jerry's apartment and the next scene is in his apartment and it's like a week later. Like they should have had like a week later or something like that, like on a card in between those two scenes. Like it just like, felt a little weird, that transition.
Yeah, I wonder
It
if
just
there
like
was.
threw me off in like a weird way.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been. I feel like there might have been a commercial there in the original airing.
I don't think so.
No?
Because I've watched this before and I've gotten confused at the same spot.
Oh, okay. Well, there goes my theory.
And there's something about the episode that feels missing. Maybe are there no scenes that they're like outside? But there's a lot of episodes where there's no scenes where they're
What?
outside.
I feel like there's rarely episodes where there's scenes outside.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Like the fake LA street sets. I don't know. There's something felt a little off. The it was really funny and it was good. But something felt a little off. I'm gonna give it. I'll give it 4 out of 5 kiss hellos.
Whoa. You're deducting an entire kiss hello.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, is there a perfect Seinfeld episode? That I wonder. Do you
Yeah, I
have a
mean, it
favorite
really is. How
episode?
do you.
Yeah, you
I
have a
have a
favorite.
favorite
You have a
episode.
distinct. Your favorite is the opposite,
Yeah,
right?
but there's a reason. There's a partial. All right, so there's a reason why that might be my favorite. It's because at some point my brother recorded that episode on VHS, and so I saw it over and over again. I mean, it was a great episode, but I
Good
also have
episode.
like
Yeah.
seen it many more times than others, and I kind of like I've almost like memorized it practically, and I feel like there may be other episodes that I may like just
I
almost as
think
much or as
I
much,
was
but
just I hadn't really I don't really have a distinct favorite episode, but in thinking about it as we were just talking about it, if I was gonna say the first thing that comes to my mind, I'd have to say the Keith Hernandez episode.
that is a great episode.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate these early season episodes that are just like way more subdued and like they're less like yeah, they're just less over the top and less
right.
they're just like there's something really really good and like
Subdued.
subdued. I'm a very subdued person, so I appreciate subdued.
It's a weird
I
word.
appreciate
Subdued. So that's the episode. I'm Jake.
I'm Yessie.
And this has been Sneakers in the Pool, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.
By the way, sneakers